Hello, my name is Ryan Thomas, and I'd like to present my presentation on physics of golf. In sports, the body engages in mechanical responses to achieve desirable results. The results differ from one case to another, but that is entirely dependent on the sport. Most sports that include the manipulation of a ball in motion deal with the concepts of physics that naturally the mind does not even consider, or it just responds to out of pure reaction. Golf is one of the hardest sports to grasp the concepts of how physics is used to play the game efficiently and effectively. It is rare that an individual can naturally execute successfully in the sport without any type of lesson or coaching. The understanding of physics in golf is, however, achievable, whereas mastering the sport is a completely different story. Here are three categories that we will be discussing and the physics concepts that pertain to each. First, the swing. We have tangential velocity and angular velocity. We have centripetal and centrifugal force. Next, the stance. We have power generator, swinging axis, weight distribution, and ball approach. And finally, we have the execution. Double pendulum, mechanical timing, weight shift, and adjustments. The swing. It is possible for any capable individual to pick a club up, strike a golf ball, and send it a distance down a particular direction. However, the understanding of the process taken during the pre-shot routine, through the backswing, and during the club face and ball impact is essential in properly executing and maximizing the amount of work exerted. So, we have creating club speed. Generate enough work of the club by increasing the swinging angle and applying enough force to power through the ball. Work is defined as force multiplied by distance. If the angle at which the club is striking downward towards the ball is the distance, and work is defined as mass of the club multiplied by the acceleration of the club face powering through the ball, then we have a demonstration of work. The striking process can be very technical and overwhelming. The increased downswing angle and the acceleration of the club head through the ball are major factors in the swinging system. But what about the club face squarely striking the ball? How can one achieve an accurate ball strike from a moving system such as the takeaway and the downswing and expect the square club face to strike the ball at a high percentage? Understanding centripetal and centrifugal force will help to connect the concepts of physics to the mechanical execution. Although centrifugal force is not really a force, it is the tangential velocity of the club face at any given position in a circular rotation that, when released, in this situation, the club would travel perpendicular to the axis of rotation, which, being the hands gripping the club, outward. So, think of it like this. On the downswing, if I were to release the club at any position, at any time, the club will shoot out perpendicular to wherever I release the club because my hands would be the axis of rotation. So let's not let go of the club. Instead, let's focus on uncocking the wrist. I'll explain. If we utilize this force to our advantage by timely uncocking the wrist, During the downswing, the club will move radially outward to an extent. By doing so, the club face will naturally straighten back out at the time of impact with the ball, allowing the most accurate way to strike the ball squarely. If the uncocking of the wrist is not timed properly, mishits will occur, like if you uncock the wrist way too soon, you would hit behind the ball, striking the ground first. In golf, they call that a fat shot. Or if you uncock the wrist too late during the impact, you would hit above the center of the ball, which they call topping the ball. So, if the wrists remain tight or rigid, like a baseball swing, throughout the golf swing, then the centripetal force will cause the club to swing inward toward the center, which would be the center of the body. This will also cause mishits and poor execution of the club face and ball impact. When thinking about how to address the ball properly so that striking the ball efficiently is possible, the golfer must consider some motions or bodily movements as either necessary or hazardous to the swing. The stance can dictate where and how the ball is struck during impact. First, consider the swinging axis. The swinging axis is the center of the head down to the bottom of the spine. The swinging axis should be quiet, it should be still, it should be constant. If the swinging axis is shifted during any time throughout the swinging process, then your downswing will be out of line with your backswing or your takeaway, making striking the ball squarely and accurately very difficult. Next, we have the powerhouse. The powerhouse is the waist. The rotation of the hips is what creates the power of the swinging system. It is commonly confused that the arms create the power. However, this is wrong. The arms are basically part of the swinging system that allows you to hold on to the club and be used as a lever when referring to the pendulum motion. Next, we have the weight or the mass of the body. To achieve a neutral shot, the weight should be distributed about both feet evenly. Now, putting the weight on your back leg would achieve what they call a high riser, or putting the weight on your front leg would achieve what they call a low burner. These are more advanced shots that practicing on the range before the course of play is recommended before the attempt. Next, we have the ball placement. The ball should be comfortably within the club reach, meaning the golfer should not be reaching for the ball or having to adjust the swinging stance or the swinging axis in order to line up with the ball squarely. Furthermore, the feet should be shoulder width apart. It is unnatural to stand with your feet outside your shoulder width or closer than your shoulder width. The leading foot should be slightly open to allow for a natural follow through. The back foot should be perpendicular to the ball. Now, think about your swing. Think about swinging through the ball. If your feet were both perpendicular to the ball, then your downswing and your follow through would be unnatural, meaning your whole body would have to shift because all the weight is shifting towards the front foot. Now, if you open the front foot slightly, maybe 15 to 25 degrees, then this allows for a natural follow through, whereas just like in baseball, the back foot squishes the bug, meaning the back foot is allowed to pivot and the front foot can remain stationary. The ball is positioned about the center of the body for a neutral shot. So, if the ball is comfortably within reach and in the center of the body, this goes for really any club, then it is easily achievable for a neutral shot. As the club changes its length, meaning as the club gets longer, it is ideal to move the ball off center to the front of your stance, but not so drastically to where your hands are behind the ball. Now, the driver, which is the longest club in your bag, happens to be a different scenario. The driver is intended to hit the ball the longest down the fairway. The driver has a different build in comparison to all the rest of the clubs, meaning the mass of the driver head is distributed evenly up throughout the club face in order to limit the rotational inertia through the swing. So, by placing the ball towards the front of your stance, not outside the front of your stance, but towards the front of your stance, off center, with a comfortable distance between your grip towards the club head. Now, down on your backswing, once the wrists uncock, the club face will naturally square up because the club is so long that it allows for the club face to squarely compress the ball, sending it straight towards your target. The best approach is to set up squarely to the ball, keep the weight distributed evenly on both feet, and the feet shoulder width apart. The swing is much like a double pendulum. A double pendulum is defined as a pendulum with another attached to its end. So, the arms are the first pendulum. The wrists create the second pendulum. During the uncocking stage, in the back and downswing. Setting up the stance squarely limits the room for error in the swinging system. When there are two pendulums at work, the ideal pivot point is constant or it does not move. This is the same for the stance and the swing. While pulling back on the arm lever, the shoulders and the head remain quiet or limited in motion, for this is the swinging axis of the body. Next, the wrists act as the second lever or pivot point for the club. So, key points. Keeping the central pivot quiet or still is ideal, and limiting the shoulder joint movement from outside the intended swinging path is also ideal. Continuing on with key points of the execution of the double pendulum, we would like to maintain no bend in the leading arm. This is ideal. The shoulder joint and the wrist joint should not move outside the intended swinging path. The wrist should be uncocking during the backswing slightly and again when powering through the ball. Next, the timing of the swing is completely contingent on the player. Everyone has a different comfort in the swinging process. Not one person is the same. So, how and when the wrist release is entirely a timing issue. Only the individual must practice and develop. Shifting the weight during the swing is critical in the trajectory and accuracy. The backswing should have weight shifted forward. The downswing should have weight shifted towards the back foot for launching purposes. As mentioned before, shifting the weight or starting with the weight either on the front or back foot are advanced shots and techniques which should be practiced on the range before attempted in the course of play. Once the stance is practiced and the striking comes naturally or unforced, the next thing to consider would be the target. How to get to the target is the biggest factor in scoring well in golf. It does not matter if someone can hit a ball 500 yards off a tee box. If you cannot reach the target within a respectable number of strokes, then your efforts have been wasted, for the idea of golf is to keep the strokes to a minimum. By taking this into account, the golfer will design different shots for different situations. No course is the exact same as the other. The outside variables like wind, rain, temperature, barometric pressure, grass thickness and depth, and altitude will determine how the shot should be designed. Golf is a very difficult sport to understand and impossible to reach in perfection. Only one can practice the techniques of the swing, making sure to cover key points, tailoring the swing to fit his or her own body type, and executing as close to precisely as possible during gameplay. Those who are masters of the game take into account the variables of the course and have mastered the dexterous motions to keep mechanically sound throughout the swinging process, minimizing any miscue. Their understanding of the physics behind golf are well beyond that of the weekend golfer. Therefore, they can manipulate and create shots seen on television that seem unrealistic or even impossible. Consider this. With the right knowledge and understanding of the world around us, redefining impossible is possible, and limitations become non-existent and capabilities limitless. Thank you for your time.